Okay, so we're back with Bryan Danielson's AEW run. We're on match 37 now, which is his match versus Jake Hager of the Jericho Appreciation Society, and also racist. So yeah, that's a thing. And this is the match to build up his, obviously, match coming up with Jericho on All Out. I think this is Brawl Out what it's building to too. And this is obviously following the Garcia stuff with Jericho and Bryan last week. The last match we talked about after their best of three falls match. So the match itself is fine. So we'll talk about before the match. It shows Jericho backstage calling out Bryan, saying that match is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Hager's going to beat him up. And then he goes, pardon me. And Garcia comes up and goes, Jericho, I want to apologize. I want to really, just pledge my allegiance to you and the Jericho Appreciation Society. I know you could beat Bryan without cheating, blah, blah, blah. And, that's it. Jericho goes, okay, whatever. And then heads to the ring. Bryan comes out. Regal goes on commentary. Hager comes out. Jericho comes on commentary. Now, the match itself, not a fan of Jake Hager. I think Jake Hager kind of sucks. So, not even just as a person, as a wrestler, I don't think he's really utilized well. I think for how talented and big he is, he's portrayed in the worst role possibly. So, the match itself is fine. Bryan and Hager don't have the greatest of chemistry, but it's just due to Hager kind of not really, Bryan not really being able to do much. It's kind of just to sell Hager's strength and power. Bryan gets put through a table and through the sides, get through to the the pole of the ring, stuff like that. He basically just gets his ass beat. Hager's trying to taunt. It's very weird. Bryan obviously does get some stuff in. He goes for a lot of holds and a lot of bars. And, there's not really that much chops. Hager has a chop section on Bryan's chest, which did look a bit brutal, but, that's just because of the weight. It's the only time where, it's not even a normal chop. It's just a slap, slap, slap. And it's not normal, like a Gunther chop, for instance. As an actual, the Bryan stuff in here, like I say, he goes for a few holds. There is the point, so on that moment where Hager has him on the top turnbuckle, and he's doing these chops. And then basically he keeps doing these chops, and then he starts punching Bryan, then gets ragged off by Bryce, because obviously, to get told off. And then as he's talking to Bryce, Bryan rises, and then Bryan does a shotgun drop kick, which was fucking neat. And after that, that's where Bryan's kind of resurgence comes in. The match isn't long. And basically Bryan gets his holds in, kind of like a crossface. It doesn't really work. I didn't like that actual, I didn't like how that was broken, actually. So Bryan goes for an armbar on Hager, and it looks pretty good. It's basically an armbar triangle, standing. And Hager, it doesn't look like Hager attacks him or anything. He just breaks the hold. It's kind of weird. Goes for another armbar. A few kicks, nothing crazy. I thought he should have worked the legs. I think you could have done a good match with this if it was anyone better than Jake Hager in that size. I mean, again, the Rusev match from Full Gear the year before was a really good example of this. So the match itself was fine. I like the finish. I do like the actual finish. Hager goes for a clothesline. They're both on the whole thingy though. So before this, Bryan does get the kick into the head, and that's pretty cool. Obviously, the crowd's loving it. The crowd hates Hager here. Good. And then he does the clothesline. Well, goes for a clothesline. Hager goes for a clothesline run at Bryan. Bryan ducks underneath it. Bryan goes and then hits a psycho knee. Instantly takes Hager out and gets the pin over that. I like that the psycho knee is shown to be an actual strong move here. I feel like sometimes it does kind of get thrown out as just that, it's an ordinary strike. And, that's kind of not... I like the psycho knee. I think it's a very strong move. Hager, he is fine. He doesn't really sell much. He's just very static. He's not really the greatest. Bryan here does what he can, but he's not really given a lot to do with it. I think the match is just here, damn, let's just get it out the way. Again, getting put through the table and stuff by Hager is kind of the main thing, so that's kind of limits Bryan from the get-go. But I do feel like they could have definitely done a bit more with Bryan in terms of the underdog, but I do like the finish with just being a knee. Yeah, it's fine. The main thing's after the match as well. After the match, so Bryan's won, Hager gets out the ring, and then obviously Jericho and, the Appreciation Society. So as they run down, so it's not Jericho, it's Matt Menard and Angelo Parker run down. They're obviously, part of the Jericho Appreciation Society, and they start attacking Bryan. Now, which is cool, because we haven't talked about this yet. As this happens, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta run out. Now, we haven't discussed this. Claudio is now a part of the BCC at this point. I forget when this was revealed, but the point is, Claudio's now part of the BCC. We knew this anyway, but I just wanted to make a note of that, and they chased the other two off. Then Jericho leaves commentary, and he's got a chair, and he runs down to get to the ring, and he gets in the ring, and he goes like that to attack the chair. Then Garcia runs out, and he takes the chair off off Jericho, and Jericho's like, what the hell? And Garcia's like, you don't have to cheat, you don't have to do it, there's no point. And then Jericho's arguing with him, which is very weird, because obviously, he's like, don't fucking, don't interrupt me, don't stop my shit. And then as soon as he turns around, Brian's ready, Brian hits Jericho with a psycho knee, crowd goes off its tits, Garcia looks absolutely wounded, he looks like he's about to cry, and Brian looks at him, winks at him, says thanks for that, and then there's the whole taunt and walks away. And that's kind of it, bell to bell, and the start to the end. It's a build match. It's nothing wrong with that. I do, like, Brian in these sorts of matches normally gets a lot out of it for me, and this wasn't bad. It was just one of those matches where it's not a Brian match, it's just something that they're just given to do, and Brian's to do with Hager. And I think Brian and Hager could have good chemistry if Hager was presented in a good way. I just don't think Hager either helps himself or B is that good. I feel like Hager doesn't have the speed that he tries to portray himself as having, so he doesn't play into a big guy role. But then the strength he does when he works into that, it's fine, but it's just so slow. There's no charisma there. There's nothing there for Hager for me. I didn't like him as Swagger. I don't like him as Hager. I'm not a fan. And that's fine. And, Brian does his best. Again, I like the finish a lot, and I like the way, he goes for these isolated moves more of. Again, the kicking in the head and obviously gets me a big pop. But overall, like a 10-minute match, it's not really much to go off. It's just kind of to build the Jericho and Brian stuff, which obviously is next at All Out. But it's still pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I like it. And honestly, again, Brian matches, that's all I ask for. Nice little short match. The next one is obviously the more meaty one, touch wood. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Bryan Danielson versus Jake Hager at AEW Dynamite in 2022. Let me know what you thought of the match. Obviously, let me know what you think of Bryan and obviously Jake Hager. Do you like the racist? And yeah, let me know what you think of the match so far. And yes, next is Jericho at All Out.